The time is officially here. My name is Cade Nissen. I've got 8-man round one predictions coming your way in a matter of minutes. Before we get going, I do want to say, though, later today we are dropping our Talk IA show for week 9 and round one of the postseason. So this is going to be a video focused on 8-man, but I'd also encourage you to listen to that where you can fill in and learn about all classes. And we'll also be talking about 8-man. Nick and I will be giving our locks and our dogs. We'll be having a few segments. We're trying to really build that show up into a weekly thing and something that can kind of be a staple around here. But I know why you're here. You're here to see if I'm picking your team to win or your team to lose. Again, these are not my predictions. These are our rankers' predictions, and I'm just simply relaying everything that they've picked. So I don't have any graphics for you guys, sadly, so this is just going to be me talking. Next week, there's just too many games in round one to do that for all 7 classes or all 4 classes that are in the playoffs right now. So next week, I'm going to try and have a little bit more of a better setup where you can kind of see the logos on the screen so you know exactly who I'm talking about. But this week, it's just going to be me talking. I do apologize, but that's just kind of how the cookie crumbles right now. So this is your kind of point right here. This is where we're starting. I'm going to try and add those clips on or those timestamps on YouTube to help people kind of click around and find where they want to look for their teams. But nevertheless, let's start with Class 8-man again. Round one. First game we're talking about unranked Turkey Valley. They're 5-3. They head to number 3 Clarksville at 9-0. Turkey Valley was able to snatch up only one of 2 wild cards in all of 8-man since they finished outside of the top 3 in their district. Both teams were playoff teams last year. Clarksville blowing them out in the first round, while Turkey Valley would advance the round of 16. Clarksville is only one of 5 undefeated teams heading into the playoffs and only one team to reach the 9-win mark. Again, they played that week 0 game, one of a few teams to play 9 games in the regular season. There's actually a rematch, I believe, where Clarksville won earlier in the year pretty handedly. And our ranker, his prediction is Clarksville, the number 3 ranked Clarksville. So Clarksville advances. Moving on to our next one, unranked Belle Plaine at 4-4 at the number 1 team, Winfield Mount Union 8-0. The number 1 team should be the most lopsided favorite in the first round of the playoffs, and that appears to be the case here. Belle Plaine has 4 losses in the season, and they were all to playoff teams. If a team can have a signature loss, it would be their week 1 defeat to Clarksville, which is only by 2 points. So Belle Plaine obviously proven to hang tough with some of the best, but Winfield Mount Union just hasn't been tested much this year outside of the week 1 victory over Central City, which was 44-36. Both teams will be looking to improve upon last year's first round exit. Belle Plaine's in Class A and Winfield's in 8-man. So Belle Plaine drops a class. Winfield obviously back in 8-man, and Winfield the number 1 team. Our ranker chose them, number 1 Winfield Mount Union, to advance to the second round. Next game, unranked Boyer Valley at 6-3. At number 11, Ottoman at 7-1. Boyer Valley, another team that played a week 0 game. That's why they have 9 games played. Boyer Valley has already been in a playoff mode for a week now, having to get a win to get in last Friday against our Weeva. Boyer Valley has had an interesting season. They lost a tight 12-7 contest with Remsen midseason, as well as playing quite a few other games that were relatively low scoring by 8-man football standards. Ottoman wraps up the regular season just outside the top 10, sitting at number 11. Their only loss was to week 1 to Cam, which was 42-12. Obviously, that's a very quality loss. They've been on a roll ever since, knocking off 3 playoff teams en route to racking up 7 wins. I think this one's interesting, though, because Boyer Valley hanging with Remsen. You haven't seen too many teams hang with Remsen. Obviously, we don't know if Remsen is the Remsen of old, but that's a pretty good sign, only losing to them 12-7. And obviously, Ottoman has just been on a roll. They won kind of the game of the week last week against Bacher to really put themselves in the spot. And our ranker did choose the Wheelers to win and move on. Our next game, unranked Jamesville at 6-2 at number 14, Bishop Garrigan. They are 7-1. Bishop Garrigan is back in the playoffs for the first time since 2018. They were another team that lost their first game and then rattled off 7 straight wins to take the district title. Janesville is a team that kind of quietly went 6-2, blew out all the teams they were supposed to, and only took losses to Clarksville and Gladbrook Rhinebeck, who by ranking and results are 2 of the better teams in 8-man. Again, Gladbrook Rhinebeck, Clarksville, 2 competitive teams and 2 teams really competing for the title. And our ranker chose Janesville. And I think the quality of losses is there, and 6-2 versus 7-1. Obviously, the records are thrown out the window at this point, but your only 2 losses to Gladbrook Rhinebeck and Clarksville. That's not a bad thing at all. And that is our ranker's first upset pick of this video, Jamesville over Bishop Garrigan. So there you have it. We're not all chalk here. Our next matchup, unranked Fremont Mills. They come in at 4-4 at number 5 Bedford, 8-0. Another matchup that is more intriguing than it would appear on paper for a 4-loss team and a top 5 team. Fremont Mills had a single-score loss to Waco in week 1, and also were leading number 2 Cam heading into the 4th quarter. At some point, though, you need to close the game out for the effort to matter. Bedford, on the other hand, started out this season unranked and very quickly flew up the charts with wins over then top 5 teams in Moravia and Lennox. Bedford and Clarksville 100% came out of nowhere. We knew hardly nothing about these teams coming in, and they've proven themselves as contenders. And our ranker did choose the Bulldogs, the Bedford Bulldogs, that is, to advance in this one. But Fremont Mills, this one could be a little closer than you might think against a 4-4 versus 8-0 team. So kind of keep note of that. Our next game, number 12 Iowa Valley at 6-2, heading to unranked BGM at 5-3. One of only 2 matchups where a ranked team goes on the road to face an unranked opponent. Or a ranked team goes on the road to face an unranked opponent. I'm sorry, I don't know if I said that. Both teams are looking to advance to at least the second round, something they both fell 1 score short of doing in 2022. BGM was able to take advantage of District 7, where the top 4 teams beat up each other on a bit. Iowa Valley was in District 6 with 2 top 10 teams and then them. And BGM, they're fresh off a top 10 win from last night. That was my upset pick, so I'm happy for BGM, the Bears. But our ranker in this case, they do choose Iowa Valley, the ranked team going on the road, kind of sticking to his rankings, I'm sure. Again, number 12, Iowa Valley, to win at unranked BGM. Our next matchup, unranked Southeast Warren at 4-4, heading to number 2 Cam, who's 8-0. A bit of a deceiving matchup here between the number 2 team in the state and a 4-loss team. I'm seeing that being a common factor. You're getting in the playoffs. You're a quality team. It doesn't matter what your record is. Southeast Warren spent the majority of the season in the rankings and even started as high as number 5, but ultimately 4 losses were just too much to keep them in the top 16. Cam took care of business, going undefeated and taking out 3 playoff teams along the way in Ottoman, Exira, and Fremont Mills. Both of these teams have exited in the second round of the playoffs last season. Our ranker has predicted Cam. Chase Speaker, I mean, I haven't seen him in person, but looking at his stats, he looks like a human highlight reel. And, Cam has just been on a roll, and they've been sitting at that number 2, number 3 spot all year long in our rankings, and our ranker does choose them to move on. Next up, unranked Key at number 7, Central City. This is a 5-3 Key team versus a 7-1 Central City team. Key is back in the playoffs for the second time in 3 years, but before that, you had to go back to the 2014 season to see Key's last state tournament appearance. Excuse me. Central City is looking to best their second-round exit last season and has themselves in a good position with only 1 loss and a top 10 ranking. Central City has rattled off 7 straight wins following a week 1 loss to the number 1 team in Winfield Mount Union by only 8 points. Key High does have 3 losses, but they were all competitive to playoff teams. Our ranker chooses Central City here. Central City, personally, at number 7, it's just so tough because there's so many good 8-man teams. But when your only loss is to the number 1 team by 8 points, that's impressive, and they're probably a little bit better than a number 7 seed. It's just 8-man so crammed at the top. It's really hard to move teams around because teams just don't lose very often in this class. Moving on, though, again, Central City is what our ranker has over Key Lansing. Moving on, unranked Edgewood Colesburg at 6-2, at number 10 Don Bosco at 7-1. Edgewood Colesburg comes in with 2 losses, both to playoff teams in Central City and Lone Tree. They did spend some time in the rankings this year, but that loss to Lone Tree bumped them out. This is Edco's 6th straight trip to the postseason. They face a team that has made in 13 straight years, and Don Bosco with their last state title coming in 2019. Bosco's lone loss in the year was week 1 to Gladbrook Rhinebeck in a game that was tied at halftime. Edco is looking to improve on last year's first-round exit, and Bosco is looking to make another title run. Our ranker has chosen the Dons, Don Bosco. Just too much to handle. Again, 1 loss to Gladbrook Rhinebeck all the way back in week 1. They're winners of 7 in a row, and our ranker thinks that'll be 8 in a row. Our next matchup, unranked Harris Lake Park at 5-3 at number 4, St. Mary's Remsen of 8 at St. Mary's. Remsen St. Mary's. Sorry, they typed it like the IHSAA. St. Mary's, Remsen. It's Remsen St. Mary's. Just was reading off the paper, but Remsen St. Mary's comes in at 8-0. The defending champs look to start another state title run with a rematch from week 1. A few rematches here in the first round. Remsen was able to win that battle 28-7 over Harris Lake Park. Although undefeated, Remsen has had a few interesting results. They were held to 12 points against Boer Valley. They would go on to win that game, though, and that's all that mattered. This is Harris Lake Park's fifth straight postseason trip. They also were the state runner-up in 2016. Our ranker chooses the week 1 matchup to remain true. Remsen St. Mary's, he thinks they would make it 2 in a row against Harris Lake Park in the same season. Next up, unranked Montezuma at 5-4 at number 6 Gladbrook Rhinebeck, 7-1 they are. 2 quarterfinalists from last season meet in the first round here, but they look very different. They took very different routes to get to this point. This matchup has a lot more firepower than your typical first-round matchup. Gladbrook has that 1 loss to Clarksville in a very back-and-forth game, and Montezuma started their season ranked high, but 4 losses to playoff teams dropped them out. Our ranker has the Rebels moving on here, but Montezuma, they've got some firepower, like he said, and this one could be a little closer than the records might show on paper. Our next matchup, unranked Baxter at number 8, Waco, 5-3 versus 6-1 here in this matchup. This will be only Baxter's 5th trip to the state football playoffs, but 3rd straight. They were unable to advance past the first round last year. Waco is hot off a run to the state title game a season ago, and they started hot this season. They opened their season with 3 straight teams that would make the playoffs in Fremont Mills, Iowa Valley, and Winfield Mount Union, losing only to Winfield Mount Union. But that means they have gone 6 straight weeks without seeing a quality opponent. Despite that, our ranker does choose Waco. Again, Baxter just coming off a loss to Ottoman, so you never know how the response might be there. So our ranker does go with Waco there. Number 16, Glidden-Ralston at 6-2 at unranked Exira EHK, 5-3. Our second matchup where we got a ranked team going to an unranked team. The better overall record and state-ranked team goes on the road to the team with a lesser regular season record and is unranked, like I just said. Exira started a little slow going back and forth, winning and losing through their first 5 weeks of the season, but a strong finish put them in the district runner-up and first-round host site. Lots of common opponents in this matchup between 2 teams that actually scrimmaged each other in the preseason. Glidden-Ralston is back in the playoffs after a 7-year drought. Our ranker does choose the unranked team at home, Exira EHK, to win this one. A really intriguing matchup here, I must say. Third to final one, unranked Woodbine at 5-3 at number 9 Lennox, 7-1. Woodbine is back in the playoffs for the first time since 2012. Lennox is hot off a state semifinals appearance. Lennox's lone loss is to Bedford, 41-30. Obviously, knowing how Bedford is now, it's not a bad loss. Woodbine would drop 3 contests, but they do have a win over state qualifier Boer Valley. Our ranker just doesn't think that's enough, though. He's going with Lennox to win this one. Next up, number 13, Moravia at 7-2 at number 15, Lone Tree, 6-2. The lone first-round matchup between 2 ranked teams. Moravia was inside the top 10 until last week's loss to BGM, which was for the district title. Moravia played a tough schedule this season. They have 4 wins over playoff teams in Boer Valley, Montezuma, Belle Plaine, and Southeast Warren. Sorry, I'm going to sneeze. Their 2 losses were also to playoff teams in BGM and Bedford. Lone Tree has only lost to ranked teams in Iowa Valley and Central City. These 2 teams appear evenly matched on paper. One of those coin flip games, there's a few of those across the board here, and our ranker does go with the road team in Moravia to pick up a win. Again, that team was ranked pretty high before their loss to BGM last week for the district title. Our final matchup, if you waited this long to hear about Riceville and West Bend Mallard, well, right now is your lucky time. Unranked Riceville, 6-2 at unranked West Bend Mallard at 6-2 as well. Both unranked and both runner-ups in their district. West Bend was able to advance in the second round in last year's postseason. Riceville, on the other hand, is making only their second appearance in the last 11 years. So congrats to Riceville. Both teams have had great seasons thus far, though coming in second place in extremely tough districts. Our ranker chooses Riceville to win this one, the road team. He's got a few road teams, a good balance of upsets and favorites here. So, again, that was all of our matchups. There's a ton of them across the board. Again, I believe 32 teams made the playoffs, double the amount that you'll see in 3A through 5A. So, again, we're going to have a ton of predictions coming out today. Playoff predictions for all classes, 2A through 8-man. We're going to pick the games, 3A through 5A. We're going to predict brackets that drop on Saturday, I do believe. And then later today, Talk IA, Week 9. We're going to be breaking down the whole slate, every class, all involved. We're going to be having some fun conversations, some fun this or that's, and picking our locks and dogs for each class. So be sure to stay tuned to that later today. We appreciate you guys for supporting. Leave a comment. Let me know if you agree or disagree with our ranker. Our rankers do, of course, look at the comments. They love seeing what you agree with, what you disagree with. Leave your opinion because we want your opinion. We appreciate you guys for tuning in. We hope you enjoy this type of stuff, whether we picked you or didn't pick you. We're trying to bring you stuff that no one else does, and I think this is something that no one else does. So, nevertheless, my name is Cade Nissen, and I appreciate you guys for tuning in. 8-man fans, if you make it to next week, I will see you there.